If you've ever spent 5 minutes, 10 minutes playing through a game with some sort of structure, you might have come across a boss fight or two, and you know, boss fights are pretty good. They do a good job at being obstacles, I guess. But you know what? I reckon we can do better. Final bosses are something really special. They act as a final challenge, the only thing between you and the end credits and the bragging rights of beating a particular game. Trust me, this becomes more intense on games like Super Meat Boy. Whether good or bad, they always stand as the last story-driven challenge that the game can throw at you, and when they're good, they can be pretty fucking amazing. So yeah, final bosses, like bosses but a little bit more final. Not much more needs explaining except for a couple of rules and warnings. The way I'm structuring this list means that I'm not looking at any super bosses or boss fights tacked on to the end of a game just for a super crazy challenge in the post-game. Think more story-driven fights. Also one boss per franchise, because otherwise this list would be peppered full of Metal Gear final battles, let's be honest here. And it might go without saying, which is why I'm going to say it anyway, but there's spoilers all over this video, so don't say I didn't warn you. You saw me, I mean, you heard me, I mean, fucking video, do the play thing. Final battles in Pokemon games have, very consistently, been... There's nothing particularly wrong with the challenge they put before you, but I just find it hard to care about this random strong Pokemon champion person, who I'm told is kind of important. I feel like this has only been different twice. Your rival Blue in Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow, and the best of the lot, the Pokemon Legend. One who to this day is still the finest champion that the Pokemon series has ever seen. The one that walked away from the top, but now he's back, and he's ready to introduce your butt to your face. None other than the Enigma himself, Pokemon Trainer Red. There might be a lot of bias here because Pokemon Gold does still stand as my big nostalgic Pokemon game, but in case you haven't noticed, this is my list with my rules, bitch! I might have broken one of my own rules in the first entry, but yeah, I wanted this guy on here somewhere. There's something stupidly awesome about fighting the hero of the iconic first generation of Pokemon, which was of course, you. To date, he's the strongest trainer you can fight in the series outside of any sort of arena, and this in combo with his fantastically balanced team stand as good indicators that this destroyer of worlds isn't gonna come quietly. Apart from the 3 Kanto starters, he's got a Pikachu that, despite being the strongest Pokemon any trainer has ever had, never lasts very long anyway, the immovable object of Snorlax, and the unstoppable force in Espeon. Basically, if you don't plan for his team, you're every single shade of fucked. I gotta say, this fight is made infinitely better by the fact that you are technically fighting yourself. You played through Gen 1, you fought your way up to being champion, you made this character what he is today. You are fighting the great trainer you became. Try and get your head around that one. I don't know if any of you have played Kid Icarus on the NES, it hasn't aged all that well, and I guarantee that it will piss you off at least once, but the game builds you up to facing Medusa, the bitch with the snake hair, turns you into stone, that one. Except in this game, she's just an eye on a wall. Who'd have thunk it? Fast forward 25 years and BAM! Kid Icarus Uprising. No more Mega Man gameplay, this is some sort of sin and punishment Star Fox love child, and ain't it fantastic? The cast is all here, Pit, Palutena, the eggplant guy, and of course, returning as the game's final boss, Medusa herself. Yo! Oh, come on. Yes, not to be outdone, Hades, Lord of the Underworld, takes the role of the antagonist halfway through the game and runs wild with it. You know the James Wood Hades from Disney's Hercules? You remember how much of a suave arsehole he was? Well, Hades in Kid Icarus Uprising is more of the same, except a bit more playful and maybe more metrosexual. Make your own mind up on that one. It's strange how he's capable of such devastation and madness, and yet we still love him because he's a sarcastic arsehole. Which, incidentally, makes some damn good final boss material. I don't know if it was the fact that I wasn't paying much attention while playing Uprising, or the fact that Hades didn't really announce his goals or motives, but I really can't remember what Hades did to be the final boss. I mean, do you need a reason? Do you want a reason? It's worth stating that the fight itself of Hades isn't all that complicated. I mean, in a game where you hold down the fire button and hope for the best, it comes down to two massive, and I really mean it, massive bonuses. First, there's Hades himself, who really kind of speaks for himself. Seriously, any other boss in his place would make this fight a ton less interesting, but the dialogue between Hades and Pit in this fight will keep you smiling the whole time. At the same pace, we've got just how many forms Hades goes through. There's a lot less hit and hope for gold, forcing you to actually use your brain and fight Hades with a strategy, especially if you ramp up the difficulty a bit. And when the shit hits the fan and Hades starts getting the upper hand, you're helped out by Medusa of all people. Yeah, the first final not final, but you get what I mean. Hades uppercuts her anyway. And hey, he looks like James Wood, or the James Wood Hades from Hercules. Then you shoot him with a giant gun and he dissolves in the white light and you save the day. Piece of cake. And yet, he's not dead. Stick around at the end of the credits and he'll turn up as a disembodied soul thing, smashing the fourth wall in the process. Well, I guess he wasn't going to go out quietly, was he?
Oh, you don't know the half of it, little bunny man.
A while back, it was generally thought that the Kirby series wouldn't see anything better than 0-2 as a final battle. He came the hell out of nowhere, his eye would bleed when you hit it, and his theme was amazing. So yeah, fine, nice work Hal, but where do you go from here?
The things you don't expect.
Kirby's Return to Dreamland had me hooked from the start with the whole multiplayer Kirby thing, but even in single player, it managed to be the best Kirby game for quite a while. So come the end and you're expecting something ridiculous, right? Well, yeah, but even Hal had something hidden up their sleeves for that one. Throughout the whole game, you've been collecting ship parts for this weird blue alien dude guy after he crash land right at the beginning of the game. Out of kindness, this guy offers to take you to his homeworld where you're attacked by this weird orange dragon guy, who you defeat because why not? But then the tables aren't just turned, they're cosmically shifted into a different reality. He was the good guy, he was the alien guy with the crown, and now he's bad guy, and just the crown with dragons and stuff. I don't know. Just look at DDD's face! I'm not sure anything else can sum up my reaction to this than this face right here. The blue alien guy, he's called Magalore by the way, was someone you always came back to, a bit like Ravio from A Link Between Worlds. He was always there, but what you didn't realise is that he was secretly, silently plotting your downfall. And so, when a special magic crown is up for grabs, he takes the opportunity and just kind of becomes the game's final battle. Again, look at his face! But yeah, Magalore's a bad guy and he's certainly no pushover. With an array of magic attacks, some ridiculous cinematics, and even a Gradius shooting section on the dragon boss thing you just defeated, is not exactly a tacked-on battle. Especially that last bit where you actually finish Magalore with potentially the largest sword ever conceived in history. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what power-ups you take into this battle because Magalore's got you covered either way. But you can always bring some friends along to soak up some damage, I guess. However you play this battle, the sight, the sound, and especially the setting are more than enough to make this one of the very best. Yeah. Bosses in RPGs can very easily be very underwhelming if you don't pay enough attention to them. RPGs usually have great stories, so there's that to consider, but if you're just spending your time throwing attacks at a guy with a ton of HP, it doesn't show the best of what a boss battle can be. But if you put a bit of considered effort into it and really try hard to create something incredible, you'll end up doing just that. Like a 4-stage final boss slathered in heavy symbolism and a 17-minute boss theme detailing the character's ever-changing personality. Dude, if you were developing Final Fantasy VI and you came in one morning and pitched the concept of KEFKA Palazzo's final fight to your boss, how quickly would his mind explode? I'm not sure anyone playing this game for the first time could have seen this coming. I mean, Mr. Palazzo is a bit nutty during Final Fantasy VI and does some questionable things, but maybe he'd have like just one final form, like when the bad guy reveals their true power or something. But no, not even remotely close. Insanity doesn't even begin to describe what this boss fight is, and I guess this does suit KEFKA in the end pretty well. This is what he looks like normally, and this is what he looks like when he gets mad. And frankly, if you can find a connection between the two, you're a better man than I. Unless you're a woman. I'm a kind of artsy type guy. I can get behind something like this with all these hidden meanings and references to classical culture. The guy's chock full of nihilism, misanthropy, and other words that I don't understand. And to put this all in one boss fight is such a massive feat. Maybe that's why he's got 4 forms. You couldn't fit it into one. This is the standard that all RPG boss fights have to be judged by. I know it's a very high standard, but that's just how this fight is. It's a great testament to what can be done with an RPG boss fight if you pour tons of thought and effort into it. And frankly, if we ever see something better than this in an RPG, I look forward to it. Moving the Zelda series to the world of 3D gaming brought a whole new dimension to what they could do with boss fights. Just think back to A Link to the Past and the great concepts they had. With some better hardware, you could do some pretty incredible things, which is where Ocarina of Time comes riding in. At the risk of making this sound like, oh my god, it's all 3D and shit, there's a ton of moments in Ocarina of Time that try really hard to show off what the N64 could do. Virtually every boss in the game had hugely impressive intros for the time. Whether it was Volvagia flying around the place or Goma dropping from the ceiling, they were all wow moments. And they saved the best for last. Since he knocked you flying as a child, Ganondorf's been a lingering presence throughout the whole of Ocarina of Time. And when you take the long walk up to his office, his organ playing gets progressively louder. This is some pure box office shit right here. He's the bad guy, he's stolen Princess Zelda, and you've got the tools to take him down. Time to do just that. Ocarina of Time isn't exactly my favourite Zelda game of all time, but amongst the vast anthology of Legend of Zelda boss fights, this fight has always stuck with me for some reason. I don't know if it's the setting or how well it complements the game's epic story, but 16 years later and it hasn't been beaten since, and we've had some pretty good games in that time. Never before has tennis been so intense and exciting, but big old Ganondorf makes it so. But hey, if you're feeling a bit weird and think you can get through this fight without a sword, go ahead and whip out your bottle, which for reasons unknown to science can reflect a strong magic attack with ease. Because Miyamoto says so! But wait, there's much more. Even with all his organ playing skills and the ability to launch fireworks from his fingertips, he never stood a chance against the might of the bottle. And so, rather pettily, Ganondorf literally brings the house down with his last breath, leading to Zelda getting captured like the damsel in distress with that one unlocking spell from Harry Potter that she is. And which arsehole put redeads on the final stretch? What if I'm really low on time and then brains? Meanwhile, on the outside, Ganon's castle kind of folds in on itself like a bit of origami. I'm pretty sure if you look to your N64 at this point, there would be smoke pouring off of it. This is Nintendo pushing it to its absolute limit. And that's before you work your way over to the rubble and Ganondorf springs out, getting a little mad and turning into a gigantic pig. The rest, as they say, is history, except this time history is a dimly lit pig man swinging 2 giant swords pining for the triangle tattoo on your left hand. As you do. Super Mario games have had a very wide spectrum of boss fights, ranging from incredible to atrocious within the space of a game. It's hard to say that Mario bosses are good or bad because frankly, there's just been so many of them. But most of the time it all centers on the big guy himself, Bowser. Again, he's been the star of some great boss fights like in Super Mario 64, and yet he's had the honour of sitting in a bathtub in Super Mario Sunshine. So he's been all over the place really, but when he's on the ball, his battles are as good as anyone's. New Super Mario Bros. Wii might be famous for being trolled by agonising multiplayer, but it had one hell of a surprise in store. There were a few Bowser fights through the game, but they weren't much to write home about, so who cares? But you end up in the final room, Peach in her cage, Bowser looking scary, kinda. Even so, he goes down easy and that's that. Let's see some credits! Now, you'd think of course it doesn't end this way, of course there has to be more to this, but strangely enough, that's exactly the way that New Super Mario Bros. For the DS ended. Bowser comes back and he's dispatched. But even if you thought that Nintendo might mix it up a little bit this time, I'm not sure you could have seen this bit coming. That pink girl sobbing in a cage? Yeah, that's not Peach. Kamek pulls one last troll move, sprinkles some magic around, and my word.
Surprise, motherfucker.
There's up in your game, and then there's this. How can we go from a boss that can be beaten by a fire flower to a boss that takes up literally half the screen and knocks you back when he roars? I mean, it's pretty fucking incredible when you think about it. You might be able to make a case that you don't do a lot of fighting with the guy, but just look at him. Would you like to go toe to toe with this guy? In lava, when he can crush blocks with this much ease? Probably best to just run away and press the giant, hilariously convenient button because, you know, what else are you gonna do? Bowser's been imposing before, but on a scale like this, with that music, hats off to Nintendo on this one because it's a little bit special. In a game where ridiculous boss fights are part and parcel, you wonder just what you could do to see off No More Heroes properly. Or at least you would, if they hadn't set up the final battle already halfway through the game. So here we are, a final battle with Dark Star. Nope, wait, it's a final battle with Gene after Dark Star had his— oh god, why? So yeah, final battle with Gene, but stick around until the end and the small matter of your Irish-American twin brother knocks at the door. The same twin brother who killed the 5th ranked assassin for you and walked away from a fight just after. The term grudge match doesn't even begin to describe this. Even footing fights, or fights where both you and your enemy are of equal ability and skill, are, in case you don't know, fucking incredible. I'll tell you, there's something beautiful about this scenario. Two twin brothers, a motel car park, armed with bean katanas, duking it out in a no-holds-barred scrap to determine who's best. No plans for world domination, no hostages, just a proper fight to the death between two brothers. And the best bit is that even ignoring this fantastic premise, this is easily the best fight in the game, and by some distance too, although that might have something to do with the 4th wall breaking at the end. By this stage in the game, the difficulty is set, so it definitely feels like a final challenge. A final battle if you like, but without being overwhelming, almost frustratingly difficult. Because you can have a great concept for a boss, but if it's too difficult, you're not going to enjoy the experience. Even on Bitter, he's at a stage where if you're good enough to reach him in the first place, he's only a little bit harder than what you've been plowing throughout No More Heroes. Oh, and the fight's flashy like fuck. Have I mentioned I like flashy lights? There's just something about them that makes me wanna look at them a bit. They're so pretty. Oh, damn it. There's a lot of boss fights out there with heavy emotional content. You've come this far, and now the story's going to wrap itself up in the most dramatic way possible. Strap yourself in because you're set for a stellar finale. Or at least that would be the case if Portal took itself even a bit seriously. Not sure you can really complain about Portal not taking itself seriously. I mean, it's like complaining that there's not enough enemies in the game. It does kind of defeat the purpose of it, don't you think? Portal's ending was pretty good, with GLaDOS betraying you and eventually firing missiles at you, forcing you to bring the whole of Aperture Laboratories in on itself. This then sets up Portal 2, where because of the demise of Aperture Science, everyone died, and now your only companion is a personality core by the name of Wheatley. He's the classic case of bumbling British humour, which meant that Americans fell in love with him almost instantly. Especially with that West Country accent, that just works, especially when you got GLaDOS in the same game being all cynical and shit. But halfway through the game, while trying to overthrow GLaDOS as the head of Aperture again, you install Wheatley in her place. And with this newfound power and his incredibly small intelligence, Wheatley betrays you, and now he's the bad guy. Fast forward to the end of the game, and there's no other way of putting this, you're presented with a final battle against Wheatley. And because he's designed to be pretty stupid from the start, Aperture Labs is set to explode and kill the lot of them. And so the battle is a combination of stopping Wheatley, whatever he's supposed to be doing, and making sure that Aperture Science doesn't go up in smoke. Now, the final battle in the first Portal game was a little surreal, but Portal 2 is a little insane. Somewhere between all the funky gels, sending bombs through portals, and the hilarious cores you need to attach to Wheatley, we've got the endless supply of Wheatley's dialogue, which, you know, it's pretty funny. So, with the cores attached, Adventure Core is the best core by the way, all you've got to do is work your way over to the stalemate button and...
Moving from the stalemate button!
But the best is yet to come.
I'm still in control, and I have no idea how to fix this place. Oh, you had to play bloody cat and mouse, didn't you?
No fucking way. now over to rabbidluigi with Sport 101. This program may contain scenes of an unsettling nature. Your discretion is advised. This is not a football. This is a football. And this is the final boss from Okami. Don't kick him. I'm fairly certain that the best way to end a long game like Okami is a lengthy and fleshed out boss. I guess when the alternative is, nice work fighting off all those bosses and cleansing all those areas, here's the reincarnation of Bob the Goldfish. A fight like Yami is almost a bit of natural progression. In fact, the fight itself does take a while to get in its stride in a way, though I imagine if a fight is as long as this one is, it'd be hard to be right on the ball from the word go. Did you get it? His ball. Yami is... oh, whatever. You start the fight by having all your brush techniques taken from you, which in case you don't know Okami very well, is the equivalent of having all your weapons or power-ups taken away in one go. It's like Metroid Prime all over again. What follows is quite a strange and almost awkward struggle through his various forms, winning back brush techniques as you go. But rather than be frustrating, it's an interesting power struggle between Yami and yourself. The first form sees you attempt to beat the crap out of him as just a white wolf, no extra fancy god powers, just a bit of raw wolf power. The further you go through the fight, the more brush techniques you get back and the more options you have to attack Yami and counter him. It gets even more fun when damn! But it was never going to be that simple. Once you've worked your way through all the mechanical symbolism and take the Ruler of Darkness out, one victory howl later and credits, right?
Oh, please.
Yami's back stronger than ever, Amaterasu is back to Vanilla Wolf, and things are starting to look a bit bleak. That is until you see what your long-term partner Isun has been doing while you've been losing and gaining power-ups. Through the power of prayer and worship, the game's based off Japanese myths, I reckon they can get away with that. Amaterasu is up off the canvas and ready for round 5, I think. Goosebumps, fucking goosebumps. One final fight to the death between beings of dark and light, between nature and machines. A fight where you expose Yami to a beating by unleashing the sun on him. The symbolism is just about endless, and yet all the previous great aspects of the fight are retained, including the ability to do damage to Yami using a ton of different methods. It's a battle of pure theatre and the best possible way to end a game of Okami's magnitude. Flashy, symbolic, and very, very rewarding. If you want to know anything about me, it's that I consider Hideo Kojima and Metal Gear to be God and Jesus respectively. So you can probably guess what's coming next. Metal Gear always knew how to do boss fights properly. They were nicely split between emotional, story-driven, excuse me for a sec while I weep into my controller battles, and the type of battles that make you stop for a second and quickly question, what the fuck is going on? The upshot is that these battles are very rarely boring and always give you something to chew on, final battle or otherwise. But let's talk final battles, and the easy and potentially correct choices are either the boss from MGS3, or Liquid Ocelot's crazy gauntlet of bare-chestedness from MGS4. But let's do something different. Guys, I tried so very hard to keep away from all things Metal Gear Rising until I played it. All around me I heard faint whispers of college ball, legends about not writing my own speeches, and funny enough, these little quotes make no sense out of context. The best bit though, is they make a little bit more sense in context. Meet Senator Armstrong, everybody. Just when it seemed that every Metal Gear game would end with a boss fight that tugs at heartstrings, Metal Gear Rising, a game that tried pretty hard to veer away from the morals, yeah, I know we had a couple of breakdowns in there, presents this gigantic US senator fighting a cyborg ninja in Pakistan in the ruins of a giant spider mech. Now, I'm sorry, but that just isn't the sort of scenario you see every day. Maybe in something like Asura's Wrath or Bayonetta where ridiculous is par for the course, but this is amazing. However, we can't talk about this fight without mentioning this guy, Etsu Tamari, the head writer for Metal Gear Rising, which means I love this man. He had a large part in giving this guy so many great lines. Again, going back to the previous Metal Gear way of spouting political jargon and story stuff, this fight is more about, bitch, I wanna be president and start a war and fix the world's problems with my giant muscles. And you know what? That kinda works in a game of this orientation. A long time ago, Metal Gear was a serious franchise. I'm not too sure you can say that about this game, when you got lines like,
Fuck American pride! Fuck the media!
you know, I just don't think this fight's amazing! And yet there's an actual battle behind all of this, and sweet Jesus is he tricky. Not difficult in the sense that you'll be tearing hair out, but challenging enough to justify how impossible he was to fight in the earlier segments. These earlier bits are very strange as you do inflict some damage to him, but teeny tiny amounts, like fractions of a percentage. The real business happens in the wreckage of the Metal Gear you fought earlier, where Armstrong has the foolproof tactic of either attempting to kick the living shit out of you, or throw big bits of machinery at you. I'll admit, it's not the most complicated of battles, but it's a fight that you'll absolutely love. This has been rabbidluigi, and you might be asking yourself, yeah, this fight's good and everything, but why would you put it at number 1? One reason, and one reason alone.
Nanomachine, son!
Want to help support these videos a bit more directly than liking and favoriting? I've set up my own page on Patreon where you can make small regular donations that go straight towards the running of this channel, so any help there is greatly appreciated. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and like my page on Facebook in order to stay up to date with all the news and goings on with this channel. Also videos, this page has like some videos on it, so you can go watch some if you like. I mean, you don't have to, but otherwise it's just me talking, and that's not very interesting. Me talking is kind of interesting, but only when I got interesting things to say, and I'm just talking here, trying to entertain myself, which is actually quite difficult. I've got like a 3DS, my iPad's out of battery. I could sing a song, a little song.